Welcome to a world of 300 miles an hour in 5 seconds. Bone-crushing acceleration, sight and sound sensations that can stir your very being, where fire-breathing monsters thinly disguised as race cars battle it out down the quarter mile in a welter of fuel and tyre smoke. Santapod has existed as a drag racing facility here in the UK since the early 60s. Santapod, so christened by the homesick American inhabitants of this once wartime United States 8th Air Force bomber base at Poddington in Bedfordshire. The bomber crews and their B-17 flying fortresses suffered triumphs and tragedies during their stay here in the heart of England. I like to think that those bomber crews would have nodded their approval to this little piece of American culture we keep alive here in the UK. Maybe the earth-shattering times and speeds and the great camaraderie of drag racing are our links with those glorious yet dark days of Santapod's past. Well, it's not only going to be at Santapod that we're going to take a look at the thrills of drag racing. We're going to be travelling throughout Europe following the 1999 FIA Championship with all the pro classes, the ultimate of which are these, the top fuel dragsters. For that FIA European Drag Racing Championship, points are allocated on a per round basis. 100 points to the round winner, 80 to the runner-up, and 60 points to each of the semi-final losers. Qualifying points are also awarded, with the quickest qualifier receiving 18 points, the second quickest 17, and so on down to 8th place. Super spectacular, yet a very necessary part of the drag racing preliminaries, the Burnout. 2 functions, cleaning and heating up those slicks on the back of the car and laying down a hot, sticky footprint over the start line. Then it comes down to sheer raw nerves. The start of a drag race is not matched for tension anywhere else in any other form of motorsport. The absolute concentration of the drivers on those lights at the top of the Christmas tree as the pre-stage bulbs come into play indicated to the driver that there is a further 8 inches to roll those front wheels forward to be on the start line. It becomes very spiritual, the drivers concentrating so hard, so demanding as the cars go into stage. Ready to race? And on the grid, it's go! 0.4 of a second is the perfect reaction time. Look at these cars, you can see how demanding it is. Well, let's take a look at some of the classes in the FIA Championship this year. The top methanol dragsters, formerly known for many years as top alcohol dragsters, now to be known as top methanol. An FIA committee ruling deciding that the fuel used in the cars is to be called methanol, no longer alcohol, as the connection with alcohol, as in beer and spirits, and driving, particularly racing, are a very bad mix. The top methanol funny cars, so named for the same reasons. And of course what you're looking at here is a short wheelbase race car cloaked in a manufacturer's replica body made from carbon fibre. The driver's office inside that bodywork with a very sturdy roll cage in there. And of course everything the same, the enormous superchargers, purpose-built aluminium V8 racing engines. Well, let's take a look at this class. The Pro Stockers, the factory hot rods, and their almost clockwork-like times and speeds. Is 1999 going to be the year for a European 6-second run or a 200 miles per hour pass? It's the world of big sponsors, close reaction times, enormous smoky burnouts, and the kind of thrills that aren't normally associated with cars that have doors. The top fuel dragster, the ultimate vehicle in quarter mile racing, 500 cubic inches of engine fed on a diet of nitromethane, which it consumes at the rate of over 15 gallons during its time on the track. Reaches 100 miles an hour in under a second and covers the quarter mile in under 5 seconds at speeds approaching 300 miles an hour. No engine damage, 2,000 pounds a pass. Well, in 1998, the top methanol funny car champion was Leif Andreasson in his Kamasa Tools Firebird, gaining 2 wins and 2 second places. It all came down at the European finals at Santapod to this race with Michael Kagarat. Well, basically, Andreasson had already done enough throughout the rest of the season, and this race was just for honour. The honour on this occasion, well, not quite going the way I think Andreasson expected, but he took the FIA Championship. Well, at the end of 1998, the top methanol funny cars, you can see Michael Kagarat closing all the time, but Andreasson it is who's the top methanol funny car champion. In top methanol dragster, it came down to this race between Peter Beck from Switzerland and Jarmo Roivas from Finland. The Finn takes the win, but Beck did enough to lift the championship. You can see 2 wins are a runner-up, bested the 1 win and 2 runners-up for the Finn. Peter Beck wins the championship for the 2nd time. In Pro Stock, well, the 1998 FIA Pro Stock Wars saw Sweden's Nicholas Andersson the champion in the McDonald's Firebird. 1 win and 3 second places gave him the advantage over Finland's Tommy Laine. In the European finals at Santapod, Andersson needed to win in this first round race against Sweden's Michael Malmgren. And as you can see, clinched the championship convincingly. Well, the tension over, did those crews celebrate? You bet your life they did. Well, at the start of 1998, Tommy Lainer's points total hit by him missing the first event. Had he been there, maybe it could have been different. Well, let's take a look at the ultimate vehicles, the Formula Ones of drag racing. Top Fuel, the championship coming down to this first race. Jens Nebo, Barry Sheavills.
I feel pretty nervous.
No, you don't.
I'm sure you can feel I'm shaking all over now.
No, Jens is a great competitor. I'm sure he's not nervous. I mean, it's my home track. We didn't run the first 4, and hopefully we can back that up, take a new track record. Main object is to get to the end of this track before Jens. If I don't, I've lost to a great guy and a great team.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's just what I want to say, really. It's a pretty emotional time for me.
Well, that set the stage for this, the ultimate race in the championship. Barry Sheavills for Great Britain, Jens Nebo for Denmark. And these cars, you could cut the air with a knife as they came to the start line. Barry had always been the bridesmaid. What was going to happen this time? But the greenie was away and Sheavills powered for the finish line. And what a fairy tale ending it was. 495, so close to 300 miles an hour. Well, you can see in slow motion, Jens had Barry away from the start line, but then overpowered the track. Barry Sheavills takes the win. Well, Great Britain's Barry Sheavills, the champion for 98, by such a small margin. You can see how heavy the competition was. Well, savour once more that championship winning run from Barry Sheavills. And not only Barry, but the Santapod crowd absolutely delighted with the day's work, picking up not only the race trophy, but the championship as well.
Winning the FIA European Top Fuel Championship was the highlight, but along with the highlight of that was running the first 4-second pass at Santapod Raceway. Obviously Santapod's my home track, I've raced there for a long time, and I was lucky enough to be the first alcohol driver to run a 5 second there, and it had always been my dream to run the first 4 in fuel, which we achieved, and we almost achieved the 300 miles an hour. For 1999, the 300 mile an hour goal is there for us, and obviously to back up the European Championship. The first round that we're going to be at will be at Santipod Raceway in May. Myself and Runa Field, my team owner, have been over to the States, and we've purchased a brand new car from Joe Amato, and hopefully that's going to take us into the 4 second barrier on most passes and around the 300 miles an hour. Car's designed with all the latest technology. It's a car that Amato had built for him in '97. Spare car, never ever been run. My favourite track obviously is Santipod Raceway. It's my home track. I've raced there for a long time, and I've been able and lucky enough to achieve my finest hour, let's say, or my finest seconds at Santipod. But also on par with Santipod, I would say that Alastaro in Finland. Obviously, I went there as a rookie in 1997 and managed to win, and everybody wondered who I was and where I'd come from. And then we went back there again in '98 and we won again. We backed it up, and I think we hold the current ET record. And I wouldn't be surprised with the new car in Finland that we were not going to run a 4, and we should get close to 300 miles an hour. Obviously everybody knows how expensive it is to go top fuel racing, but now that the infrastructure is in place for marketing companies to look at drag racing and corporate companies to get involved, then I think that sponsorship and big sponsorship, anybody who wants to get involved in the quickest and fastest motorsport in Europe, in the world for that matter, they could start looking at drag racing, and we're the place that they should start looking.
There isn't anything on earth that feels like hitting the throttle of a top fuel dragster. You'll see the crew chief walk forward and bring the car into stage, or bring in the front wheels towards the staging beams. When he does that, he then tells the driver in some hand movement to bring in the second fuel pump, and he has brought on the second magneto. Bringing in the second fuel pump delivers over 2 gallons of fuel every second. So we go into full stage, and then the next thing, the lights come down on a pro tree, and then a green, hit the throttle, and it's like being shot out of a catapult or out of a bow. And for the first 60 feet, you don't actually see anything. But what you've got to bear in mind is that within 60 feet, the car's reaching over 100 miles an hour, and that's taking 0.86 of a second. All top fuel cars are V8s, and obviously a V8 engine doesn't want to go straight. The torque reaction of the motor's wanting to pull it to one side, so you're forever trying to correct the car. And anybody who stands behind a top fuel dragster will realise that they never ever go straight. So don't let anybody tell you that it's easy to drive a top fuel car because they only go in a straight line, because they don't. Over to the 1/8 of a mile, we're up to, believe it or not, we've reached 250 miles an hour in the 1/8 of a mile. Just a little over 3 seconds. This is a good time to have a look round to see if you're in front. Although it's the best time for a driver, it is also the worst time, because this is when all the downforce needs to come in on the car. And this is when your rear wing really needs to work. And if it doesn't, then you feel this like slight tendency of the back wheels to start to spin. Now, this is when the driver has to work out whether that is the tyres starting to slip, or whether it's really digging in and getting to grips with the track. And at this point, you've either got to keep your foot hard in, or start to pedal the throttle a little bit to let the rear slicks settle down. Go through the top end and deploy the parachute. It's an awful feeling, because you're probably pulling -4.5 G, but it's also a great feeling, because as soon as those chutes come out, it scrubs 100 miles an hour off the terminal speed, and then you can just use the brake to ease the car down to a standstill.
Well, having set the scene for 1999, let's take a look at some of the main contenders. In Pro Stock, this man has to be the favourite. Last year's champion, Nicholas Anderson, driver of last year's McDonald's Pontiac Firebird car, a new sponsor for 1999. The car now backed by Total Mech. but I'm sure the performance is going to be just the same. And for a young man, barely 21 years old, the reaction times are like lightning. While these 500 cubic inch engined manufacturer-backed hot rods absolutely perform like clockwork, regular low 7-second times and 200 miles per hour passes mean that anybody in the class has to be really on their mettle. The racing is so close that it could really be any one of 10 cars takes the win. Hot on Nicholas's heels has to be this man from Sweden, Michael Malmgren, and the technology that's involved with that Oldsmobile Cutlass has to be seen to be believed. Radio communication with the crew and a grim determination to do much better in 1999. Reaction times are what Michael's going to be concentrating on. A personal best of 7.07 seconds at 195 miles per hour for Panasonic show that this man has real form. Let's take a look at who's favourites in top methanol funny car. This man, Michael Kagerad from Sweden, always has to be one of the favourites. A real tough competitor with so much enthusiasm for the sport, even after many years of competing, that he's a hard man to put down. A change of body shape for Michael for 1999, previously cloaked in Ford. This year, Chevrolet provide the bodywork in the shape of a Chevy Camaro. Whatever the body shape, Kagerad is not a man to be taken lightly. Number 2 in the championship in 98, wants to do better in 99. While I think the others hear the footsteps of Mickey Kagerad, this win in the final event of 98 shows you why. Well, of course, the man who's the reigning champion, Leif Andreasen, has to be a favourite for the title in 99 as well. He's taken the Kamasa-backed Pontiac Firebird to virtual domination of the class in 1998. Very little changes for 99, and the crew are going to be working just as hard. 2 wins, 1 runner-up and 2 semi-final places got him the championship in 1998. One of only 2 funny cars to compete in every round last year, Leif has a personal best of 5.96 seconds at over 237 miles an hour. He's going to be there or thereabouts. Well, let's take a look at who the contenders are in top methanol dragster. Peter Beck is the defending European champion for the 2nd year running. So he obviously knows how to win the championship. The formula is there. He's 41 years old, hails from Switzerland, and for 99 the team had considered moving up to racing top fuel, but decided to stay with top methanol and go for 3 in a row. As you can imagine, the other team's not delighted. Regular still as crew chief. They've got to be a winning team. Let's not discount the man who was runner-up in 1998, Jarmo Roivas, the holder of the ET record. Only managed to be 2nd in the championship, but one of those teams that are to be feared every time. I know Peter Beck had many tussles with Jarmo Roivas. Roivas coming out on top in this particular race, and with the tuning skills of Simo Patoharu, well, I think it's fair to say Jarmo's going to be the leading contender out here and anxious to take the crown away from Peter Beck. Jarmo's personal best of 5.74 second run at 238 miles per hour. While to look out for representing Great Britain, this man, Rob Turner. Long-time campaigners Rob, Steve and Carmel changed into top methanol dragster in 1990, and with backing from Silkaleen are looking to improve dramatically on their 1998 performances. Well, big wheelies like that from Rob don't help, but with a personal best of 5.78 at over 241 miles per hour, the Turners are a hard act to get round on their day. Let's move to the ultimate class, Top Fuel, and this man, the reigning Top Fuel champion, Barry Sheavills, lifting the crown for Great Britain in 1998 with a crew led by this man, Rune Fjell, the Norwegian car owner, and I'm sure the inspiration for Barry's changing form at the start of 98. Barry looking forward to being a leading contender in Top Fuel. All of that ambition, all the pent-up skills that are belonging to that man, all came to fruition in 98, and I'm sure Barry's going to be able to build on the experience of being the European Top Fuel champion. He'll certainly be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, and it would be nice to have back-to-back Top Fuel champions hailing from the UK. Well, wildcard in the bunch for 1999, this man, Gordy Bonin. Over here from the USA to specifically race in the FIA Top Fuel Championship, along with bringing a big sponsor with him. Gordy Bonin brings a wealth of experience for being a top-line competitor in the United States, firstly in funny cars and latterly in Top Fuel. A big challenge for the European teams.
All four classes are equally important in developing the FIA European Drag Racing Championship. Top Alcohol Dragster is very important because it's these drivers and teams that will step up to the Formula One class Top Fuel. Pro Stock is vital if indeed we are to attract manufacturers, because it's a manufacturer's class similar to touring car throughout Europe. And then we have, last but not least, the alcohol funny cars. Replica bodied cars of manufacturers, but that's where the similarity ends. They're short wheelbase, 250 mile an hour, exciting, dangerous and spectacular. I have the greatest respect for the sportsman racers. They form the core of the drag racing business. They form the core of the sport. I have a passion for the sport. That's passion has been in me for 20 years. I think if you cut my veins open, nitro or alcohol will pour out of them. But passion is not enough to develop a modern motorsport. We now need to look at the commercial elements, we need to develop the television, we need to develop the professional classes, and we need to compete with other motorsports. That cannot be done on a sports and an amateur level alone.
Well, let's take a final look at the races that all eyes are going to be on for 1999. The drivers expected to do well, the defending champions, Barry Sheavills in Top Fuel, Nicholas Anderson in Pro Stock, Peter Beck in Top Methanol Dragster, and Leif Andreasen Top Methanol Funny Car.